Hi guys, welcome to another video tutorial with me, Claire's. In this video, we are going to be painting loose florals using these products right here. Let's walk through the products real quick. We've got the Princeton Neptune Mottler 1.5 inch. We've got the Princeton Oval Brush 1/2 inch. And I'm also going to put in, we always need some sort of round just in case. So the 6, you know what? I'm going to swap out the 6 for a 4 Velvetouch. I've got my Daler-Rowney set of watercolors right here. We've got Yellow Ochre, Perfect Pink, or Portrait Pink, sorry, and Permanent Rose. And for paper, we're using Baohong watercolor paper, 100% cotton. Most of you who follow me on Instagram probably know this already. I am now an ambassador for Baohong Canada. So here we go, using this. Many of you ask about my ceramic palette right here. This was a gift to me, and it is from Indigo. Having my coffee in my Hawaiian mug over here, and as per usual, remember guys, before we begin, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, as it really does help my channel grow. All right, so let's begin. All the items I'm using in my video over here are listed in the description below of this video, so please feel free to check that out. If you are looking for Baohong paper, I do have a coupon code for you, so you can totally avail of that as well. Just trying to get this open real quick here, and then we can be on our way. There we go. All right, brand new Baohong watercolor paper. Here we go. Oh, look at that texture. It is stunning. I don't know if you can see that texture. There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to flip this over so it doesn't flip while we're painting, and we can begin. So let me break down what we are doing here before we actually start doing things, and I'm gonna have to zoom in just a bit so you can see it better, right? So I'm going to do it vertical instead of horizontal, which is how I had it before. What we're going to do is start off with doing a nice fluffy flower with our Princeton Mottler, and then we'll graduate into doing some smaller flowers with the oval 1/2 inch, and then we'll keep this handy for our leaves and fluffing. Okay, so let's begin. I am going to start off, before we actually officially begin, I am going to add in 2 greens, maybe just the 1 green, olive green, just to sort of have some nice greens happening. I'll keep the sepia handy just in case we need to do something with it, but we'll see. Okay, so dipping my Mottler in water, which I have off to the side here, we're going to start off with getting some nice, beautiful portrait pink. Yep. And I'm just going to hold it over this palette here as I gently rub against this color cake, and then just mix it in here. I had some previous paint on there. Oh, make sure you also have paper towel in case you need that. And now, because this brush is so wide and I don't want a massively gigantic flower, I'm going to use this brush holding it sideways. And so here we go, starting off with my first stroke, dipping the tip of my brush in water. I'm going to extend this stroke to get a nice petal. Here's another one. And I want this to be loose, fun, and I'm sort of dropping in some darker strokes of the color in there before it dries off, because it'll give me a nice beautiful bleed. Here's another petal. And I'm leaving that white space in the center so I don't have, so it gives us a little bit of loose definition without really going all out and being super defined. So there's our flower. Notice I'm adding a little bit of like fluffing at the edges here to kind of indicate like that the petals are fuller, giving some nice darks and lights, shadow effects. And now let's put this aside, and we're going to get the Mottler, and I'm going to get some of that rose, permanent rose. And before this dries up, I'm just going to add some permanent rose strokes within this flower, getting the color directly from my color cake and really swooping in and just adding this gorgeous color to my base coat. And I'm just adding a couple of strokes so that it can blend in nicely, and at the same time I am also trying to slightly tweak the shape of my flower to my liking. And last but not least, I'm getting color, dabbing on there onto my tip, and then lightly grazing the center to get the nice, full, robust pink directly in the center here. Just like that. And the more you add, the darker it becomes. So I'm just going to add a bit more. You might even choose to add a little bit of that sepia in with the pink, in which case it'll really give you a nice deep hue. So just take some of that pink, mix the sepia in, and while it is damp, just drop it in. This is the perfect time to add this, because it will give you a nice smooth blend, as opposed to if you went in after it dried up. So beautiful, whimsical, soft, and lovely gradients happening in there. So now we move on to doing a little bit of the leaves. So let's just get some of this color, and while it's damp, again using the tip of my brush, I'm going to lightly add, let's see, placement is everything, so I'm going to add one here, and then using the side of my brush, just drop that in, and then add darker tones to it, to your first layer of color. So you're essentially dampening your sheet and then going in and adding those details. Okay, same thing here again. I'll do one here. So I like to add a little bit of an indication of where the flowers, the leaf is going before I actually add in my stroke. So that's why I do a little bit of an arc before I do anything else. Same thing here, perfect. I like the little fluffing kind of elements, kind of keeps things really loose and fun. I notice how now that it's drying up, the center is looking a lot lighter. So at this point, go back in, get some more of that sepia and just add that in. I'm using the number 4 for that. Again, it gives you a lovely gradual blend because you already had some sepia that kind of seeped into the flower, and then now you're going back in and you're just kind of highlighting that some more. And then same thing with the pinks. We're going to go in a little bit and just add some more details. So just getting a little bit of that pink, and I'm just going to lightly, make sure you don't have too much water on your brush, more color. Lightly pull it along. Starting from the center, so starting from that sepia, I'm just going to lightly graze and pull it along. So you see how you're adding detail to your petal. Same thing here. Kind of go around till you're satisfied with this definition that you're giving it. If you really like the loose effect and you just want to leave it loosey like this, that's also totally fine. Adding some elements at the top of the petal too, just so it gives it a bit more. There we go. And that's good enough. So now we can move on to doing. So for the smaller flowers, here's what I'm doing. I'm taking my oval brush and I'm going to get a little bit of the Aquafine yellow. Sorry. Yeah, yellow ochre. And I should introduce one more color just to sort of, actually we might not need to because we've got the sienna for that. This takes a little bit of brush control, guys. So the more you practice, the better you become, the easier things get for you. So all I'm going to be doing is with the fine pointed tip of the oval brush, fine pointed, I'm going to lightly create little lines, so kind of like asters or tiny daisies around this flower, or wherever you want to place them really. So here's what I'm doing. Lightly grazing. And what I'm going to do is alternate where I'm placing this, and then dip the tip of my brush in water and then go back in. And this way what happens is it helps disperse the color. And then we've got some nice light to darks happening in here. And now, just like we did with that first flower, we're going to go get some of the sepia, and I'm just light with the number 4, and I'm adding little dots in the center here. Now careful how much water you have, because if you've got too much water in your petals, it's just going to go right into the petal. If that happens, just take your paper towel and lightly dab, and that's how you control it. Or just wait for it to dry just a little bit before you go in with the sepia, okay? 2 things that you can do. So continue creating little flowers like this, have some kind of facing upward in different varying variations of color tones. So, you know, maybe some with more water, less color, that sort of thing. Leave it kind of lots of white space so you got nice contrast. Maybe even add a little bit of pink in there. So I added a little bit of pink, which clearly seems to be like a lot. And I didn't wash off my brush. So I'm getting a nice blend of like that pink with yellow, which is stunning. So happy accident right here, guys. You can see how this is blending in there a bit much. So I'm just going to take my paper towel and lightly sort of pull it downward. So kind of like using a brush and just taking off color, but just taking a tip and just lightly going towards the center, and you're good. So you got these cute little flowers. Continue creating more. This is almost like fluffing at this point because I'm not really adding more color. I'm just kind of adding, using what I have left on the brush to kind of create more loose flowers. and then it's the dark sepia that kind of gives it some definition, or gives your eye a little bit of help with where these little flowers are. So taking this sepia, I'm going to mix in a little bit of green, because now we can do some leaves for these guys. So I've done a ton of leaf videos. If you've not seen them, or you're not quite sure how to do these, check out my leaf videos, guys. So just using the tip of my brush, creating a direction for my leaves, and then starting with the tip, or starting from the center or from the stem itself and extending outward. Some can just be using the tip, pressing down to get that nice leaf shape. Adding some in between the flowers as well. This helps fluff things up and kind of give it that fuller look. Very pretty. Same thing with the leaves here that we did with the flowers. Dip your brush in water to get a slightly varying mix of green. And I'm just adding a couple of dots here and there to kind of really emphasize the fluffing. It just makes it delicate and just makes it real pretty. So we've got some here. Actually, before we move on from here, just want to add a little bit. This is where composition, you're exercising your composition skills a little bit by figuring out where you want to add these little tendril-like stems and extend with leaves and such. Okay, don't, the urge will be there to copy me. Try not to. Try to figure out where you would like to place it as opposed to me. Okay. All right, so let's move on to doing a little bit more of these guys at the top here. So taking more of that yellow, we're going to continue creating these cutesy little flowers, let's say right here. So it's diagonal a little bit. And then I can see that I need to add more water. So just adding a bit more water. Got a very light flower. I'm going to add a little bit of that, the portrait pink in here. It's nice to kind of drop in the colors we're using in the composition so it ties in and you get to see the full picture, so to speak. Adding a bit more. So literally grazing with the tip of my oval brush and just creating these flowers here. Want to add a little bit of that pink in there, go for it. Beautiful. I'm going to add one kind of like peeking out from here, just so it's got a little tie-in, 3 different areas where we've got these flowers. And then we go in with our sepia. Oh, this had green on it. Let's wash this off, get some sepia. Make sure you don't have too much water on your brush. And now that it's dried up just a tad is the right time to go in and just drop little dots of sepia. So remember what I said, this will also help you figure out when is the right time to go in and add the sepia, because depending on when you add it in, it'll either give you a super amazing flare or just the right amount. And really helps you figure out the nature of watercolor. There we go. Okay, so we've got that. Let's get a little bit of green. So getting some green mixed up over here. I am going to add, so we've got that nice tall guy happening there. Move these out of the way a bit. We don't need to add too much really, because you want to keep this nice and delicate, and just add a little bit of green to make these guys, or make this area seem a little fuller. So I'm even dropping in little bits of green here in between the flowers to kind of give it, to break it up. And you can see that it's blending in, which is kind of pretty, especially if we're going for the whole loose style of florals. So that works. If you can get a slightly different variation of green, that also helps. Makes things, not only breaks things up, but just adds visual interest as well. There we go, almost done. So this is where fluffing comes now. So fluffing is essentially what I have coined a term to go around at the end of your composition and just add lighter strokes to enhance things a bit more. So dipping to get more water, or maybe even adding a little bit of that sepia to get a slightly different variation. So the little sepia turned it into a very dark green, so I'm really watering it down, and I'm just going to lightly go in and add in additional strokes here and there to kind of really emphasize the outer areas. So something like this maybe, but notice how light it is. I mean, you can't quite see it as well as you will once it dries off. So let's just hold off till it dries off to comment on that. You're framing your composition. That's what's happening. So this is where the little dots, or if you want to, if you don't want to go in, you don't want that added pressure of figuring out where to fluff, do a splatter. Splatter also works, you just have less control over where it lands. Try both. I always like experimenting because then it kind of tells you, gives you, we all have preferences, right? So this is how you figure out what your preference is. And I think almost done. Yeah. There we go. Gorgeous. So loving how this turned out. Let me know in the comments, guys, if you painted this, what you thought about it, how you made out with it. And like I mentioned, everything I'm using here is in the description below. So make sure you check that out. Don't forget to hit the like button. It really does help my channel grow, and I can continue making videos like this for you guys. And if you end up sharing this on social media, please tag me. I am on Facebook and on Instagram. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching, and we'll chat soon. Bye.